share one with you. The first week of school, Donald Mathis was my classmate. We started school at the same time. And Connie Margraves was in our class. Some of you may be old enough to remember those names. But the principal was a guy named Burkett Wall. Now, Burkett probably didn't weigh over 250 pounds, but he looked to me like the 2,000-pound gorilla, especially when he got a hold of us. In the first week of school, somebody threw an apple core and hit Connie Margraves' new dress. And it made a spot on it, and I don't know who squealed on us, but Mr. Wallen called us into the office. And you talk about two little boys getting an impression in the first week of school. When he got through with us, we understood fully what discipline in school meant. But that was an experience that I'll never forget. Debbie asked me too what all I've done. She mentioned most everything, and in addition to that, I've seen the educational process from just about every vantage point that you can see, student, and for a brief while I was a teacher. I got out of the United States Army down in Georgia. They had been kind enough to let my wife teach, and I got out in March, and they had a vacancy, and they said, hey, we hate to lose your wife. She's a good teacher, so why don't you come and teach? And so I consented to do that. Unbeknownst to me, they had shuffled all of the bad guys in the school into they had me teaching 2 English classes and 2 math classes and a health class. And they had shuffled all the dudes that nobody else wanted to deal with into those classes. They thought, well, this guy's an MP, he'll come out and get them under control. And get them under control I did. I used the same method. You all can't do this, and probably most of you never heard of it, but our principal, Mr. Don Spargo, had the shop teacher whittle out this big paddle and drill it full of holes. And when Spargo got a hold of you with that, you knew that you'd been dealt with. And so I picked out the ringleader of this gang, about 12 boys that were giving the school trouble, and kept him in one day and had the shop teacher do the same thing, and I whittled out this big paddle and drilled it full of holes and told him that I was going to give him a whipping. He said, you ain't whipping me. I said, well, listen, Buster, before we leave here today, one of us is going to get a whipping. I did, in fact, put corporal punishment to him. He did, in fact, have big tears coming down his eyes. But, in fact, I tell you what, from that day forth, I was Mr. Jenkins in that school. Honestly, those boys appreciated that. And if somebody else in the school started to give a little trouble, they'd come running to me and say, Mr. Jenkins, he's fixing to do this, that, or the other. But it was the point is, I think I learned more in a few months as a teacher than I had learned in the entire time that I had been in school. But I learned a lot right here in Hawkins County, Tennessee, and other people have learned lots. And let me tell you, we have a school system that we can be proud of. The first 8 teachers that I had, and they're all gone now, but I can remember very fondly all the great qualities that they had, but to a person, they were all women. They were all good, moral people. They were all dedicated to the task that they had before them. And the same was true in high school. But I can think back before my time and during my time, and I can think of products that were produced by the Hawkins County school system that anybody in the world would be proud of. My mind goes to a fellow named Johnny McPrice, who graduated from Rogersville High School, went on to Tennessee Tech to get a degree in electrical engineering, and became one of the top people at NASA with Dr. Van Braun in the space program, but he's retired now, but he brought great credit to to this county and to the entire country. When I was at Tennessee Tech, from the smallest school in this county, Clinch, there was a lady who was a student down there who was in, I think her major was microbiology. I don't know if she was headed toward med school, but she disgusted everybody at Tennessee Tech because she was in the pre-med courses, and she never made anything but an A. And you know, it just absolutely, they were hard to come by in the engineering department at Tennessee Tech and in those pre-med courses. But she never made a B in the whole time, and people used to fuss and carry on, and she didn't seem to be studying all that much. But she was a product of the smallest county in the school and brought great credit to this county. I can think of dozens and dozens of people. General Ronald Brooks, I know that he's a little younger, and you all might know that name, but he distinguished himself after graduating from Rogersville High School in the United States Army and retired as a Major General. But there are many, many people that we can all be proud of who have gone through the school system, and it has to tell us that down through the years that we've done lots of things that are right. Now I know that it gets to be more and more difficult. You know, when I was in school, throughout school, the challenges were great. They always have been, they always will be. But when I was in school, it was before television. Now I know you're going to laugh because everybody in here grew up in the television age. And it was before the computer age. And now those two influences are tremendous on young people. And when I started school, most of the things that people learned were at home, from their parents, at their churches, or at their school. There was no television, there was no computer. And today, that's entirely different. It is a different world out there. And so that makes the challenge that you all face, and that all your teachers face, and all these administrators face, extremely more difficult. Now, it was also the day before zero tolerance. I'd hate to think about what would happen to me and my buddies, you know, because we would take an old trout car to school, to Rogersville High School, and we'd put a bird dog in the trunk and punch some holes in it so we could breathe, and put a few shotguns in there, and as soon as school was out, we'd take off and go grouse hunting. But you always put up with that. But those are some impressions. But let me tell you, I think the big impression on me was that it was we had a good experience. If you were willing, the opportunity was here to learn and to compete. When I went away and I started out as an engineering student, and a lot of the students that we had to compete with were from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. They had been involved, their parents had been involved in the Manhattan Project. They were physicists, engineers of all kinds. And these young people had heard at home, and there were discussions in their home about subjects that we'd never heard of in Hawkins County. But we all found that if we dig in, that we could compete, and it was one of the best school systems in the entire state. But we learned a lot from having to compete with people like that. Debbie said you might want to have some questions. I've seen this process from as a student, teacher, parent, legislator, member of Congress, and you know, every every place that you serve and every place that you look at the educational system, it's a little different perspective. But in the end, the objective of all the teachers, the administrators, the school boards, the members of the legislature, the members of Congress, and everybody else ought to have the same goal in mind, and that is to provide the very best education that we had for the young people across this country, because we live in a more and more competitive world, and if we do not prepare our young people for the challenges that they have today, and they're great. You know, we're losing out in this world in manufacturing, and we have got to catch up. If we're going to be the #1 nation on the face of the earth, we've got to be the #1 manufacturing nation on the face of the earth. And so the challenge is out there for you to, as school board members, teachers here, administrators, or whatever your station in this educational process is, to try to make sure that we do our part, all of us, to put kids out there who can be competitive and bring this country back to the place it should be. Well, let me tell you one story. Even the media doesn't have any questions here, so I'm thankful for that. Let me tell you one story. When I went to the state legislature, there was a governor named Frank Clement, who was a great governor of Tennessee. He had preceded me as an officer in the military police corps. And so when we'd have meetings in his office, he'd stick around, and the people who were second lieutenants when he was an officer were field grade officers, and so they were his buddies, and he'd want to know about them. And so he'd regale me with stories, and Jim Phillips will appreciate this. In, I guess it was 1952 or 3, that the integration of the schools, the governor had to declare martial law in Anderson County, Tennessee, to see that the integration went properly. And his adjutant general was a guy named Joe Henry, and he sent Joe Henry up there, and Joe was kind of a flamboyant sort of fella, and he wore 2 pearl handle pistols like George Patton. And he pulled a Sherman tank up in front of the courthouse, and he got up and read the proclamation, and it said for him to, you know, protect the people in Anderson County. And so Joe got up, read the proclamation, he looked at everybody, he said, "I intend to follow the orders of the governor." He said, "I intend to protect every man, woman, and child in Anderson County. I intend to protect all the property in Anderson County, and I intend to protect everybody except the damn used meat." No offense, ma'am. The governor laughed, and he said, "You know, it took me months and months and months to get over that." Thank you all for having me.